Brent. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and the owner of Peas and Happiness. Today, I'm gonna walk you through what to do if you have a new vegetable or a new recipe or cooking technique that you've not tried before, but you wanna know how to use it. I think sometimes it can be really intimidating if you are not very familiar with some new vegetables to get started with them. And so I wanna know, first of all, that you are not alone. We all come across vegetables that we haven't encountered before. I do as well. If you watched my unboxing video a couple days ago of the Miller Farm CSA, I came across this, what I now know is a buttercup squash. Guys, I've literally never seen one of these before. So I cook vegetables all the time. I talk about vegetables, it's my whole life, right? But I still come across vegetables that I've never encountered before. So if you feel that way sometimes, that you've got all of these recipes and you're like, I don't know what these vegetables are, that's okay. That does not mean that you cannot learn them, and that doesn't mean that you can't cook them well. So I'm gonna just walk you through my approach to what I do when I have a new vegetable that I haven't tried before, because there is a skill to trying new things. So it's not as intimidating as it sounds, but you'll want to follow these 3 steps. So the first thing I do is I phone a foodie friend. And what I mean by a foodie friend is someone you know and trust that likes vegetables, that has experience with them, that can give you some insider tips. So when I did my little unboxing video, I tagged my friend at Miller Farms and just asked her what this weird vegetable was, and she commented, and that's how I knew it was a buttercup squash. So if you don't have a foodie friend, tag me. I would love to be your foodie friend. So if there's ever a vegetable that you don't know about, you can tag me at Peas and Happiness, and if I don't know, I have other friends that I trust that can help us out. So that's step 1. Step 2, now that I know it's a buttercup squash, the second thing I do is Google it. So I searched for buttercup squash, how to know it's ripe, what kinds of recipes to use, how to make it taste good. So I like to use all those different phrases so that you can get a wide variety of different options. And I came up with some different ones. So what I'm gonna use today is a roasted buttercup squash recipe, but what I found out about it is that it's really similar to butternut squash in the texture and the flavor. So that means it's gonna be sweet on the inside. It should be orange once we cut it open. The seeds are also edible like other winter squash. So I learned a lot by Googling. Another recommendation when you are Googling is to pay attention to the reviews or the comments. So oftentimes when you Google a new recipe, there will be star ratings next to each one. So don't pick one that has 2 stars, pick one that other people have tried and like. Or again, if you know other friends who have tried this, get a recipe from someone you know and trust. Find a blogger you follow all the time. That's why I've created the Peas and Happy Meal Guides, is so that you have a source of trusted recipes, because you don't want to try a recipe that doesn't work out because it's not your fault, but because the recipe itself wasn't very good. So step 3 is just to try it out and have fun, and that's what we're gonna do now. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. If it doesn't go perfectly, it's okay. I really encourage people to get their family involved so that you have other support. Maybe you have a friend that you like to try new food with. Maybe you get your kids to pick out a weird vegetable and then learn about it together. So if it doesn't go perfectly the first time, that's okay. But if you try it and you don't hate it, hey, that's a win, and it might mean that the next time you try it, you do something a little bit different and you like it. So let's go ahead and cut this open. What I learned from the interwebs is that we're going to cut this in half horizontally, not crosswise, lengthwise, right down the stem. Ooh, and it is a tough winter squash. The other thing I learned about this when I was Googling is that you want to look for a squash that is heavy for its size, so it's nice and dense, and also this strange piece on the bottom here, this bottom part, this should not be too squishy. So they said that if this gets too squishy, that means that it's no longer good. Okay, so I cut it in half, and now you can see that it is really similar to acorn squash or butternut squash, that it has lots of seeds on the inside. So apparently these are also good to roast. I'm gonna set these aside. Maybe I will try to roast these and just see if how they compare to our pumpkin seeds and acorn squash seeds. I don't know if anybody has been following along, but my current favorite are acorn squash seeds. My 11-year-old still likes pumpkin seeds. I think pumpkin seeds actually are a little bit more tough. They have a little bit more fiber in them, so the acorn squash seeds are just a little bit more tender, but they're both really good. These seeds are bigger than either acorn squash or pumpkin seeds. I don't know if you can see my seeds there. Yeah. So I'm just gonna set those aside for now. So the recipe I found said that the skin of this is actually edible. So I'm a little wary of that because butternut squash is not, but other squash like delicata squash is edible. So I figured that I'm just gonna try it, and the worst that happens is that we don't love it, but we learn something new. So another way you can cook this is to stuff this center part where I'm pulling out the seeds, and you can stuff it with apples, with pecans, with cinnamon, and you can turn it into sort of like a dessert. Or you could also roast this or boil it, steam it until the flesh is really, really soft, and then use it in place of butternut squash or pumpkin, for example, in a soup, something that's blended. So I am going to actually cut this into thin slices because I want to roast it. So how am I gonna do this? I don't know. Okay, let's cut it in half so it's easier to deal with. Again, this is a pretty tough squash. And then I'm just gonna cut really thin slices here. This is what the picture looked like. I really like finding recipes with pictures, or also finding YouTube videos for new vegetables that I haven't tried before. It's almost like having your own friend or personal chef in your kitchen showing you what to do with these. So again, I am slicing these into nice thin slices. And then I'm gonna spread these on this sheet pan that I have here. Okay, for the first pan of buttercup squash, I'm going to just drizzle some olive oil all over those pieces, and then just sprinkle a little bit with salt and pepper. I did find a recipe for this. Some of the recipes recommended using some sort of sweetener like maple syrup or brown sugar, but I actually like butternut squash better just with salt and pepper. I think it really enhances the natural sweetness. So I'm gonna do half of this just with salt and pepper to see which one we like better. So that's gonna go into the oven at 425. I have it on convection. If you don't have a convection oven, I recommend to do it about 25 degrees hotter. So 450, really high heat, that's gonna caramelize a lot of that. So that's based on roughly on a recipe that I found. We'll see how that works. With the other half of the butternut squash, my plan is to stuff it. So I have some apple slices. I'm gonna finish slicing here, and we will put those in there and more. And then I have a little bit of brown sugar and butter to do an experiment to see which one tastes better. So this recipe was described as kind of like a dessert. So I'm just gonna stuff it. There's the butter, the brown sugar, and then I'm gonna just sprinkle this with cinnamon. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in this little baking dish. My cinnamon's coming out quickly, but that's really thick, so I definitely want to have plenty there. I'm going to put a little bit of water in the bottom of this pan. The notes that I saw about buttercup squash were that it tends to dry out. So for this recipe that I want to serve, I'm gonna scoop out the flesh once it's done. I want that to stay a little bit more moist, so I'm gonna put some water in there, and I'm gonna bake this at a lower temperature at 350. Because it's thicker, I don't want it to brown too quickly without the middle getting done. So I'm gonna put both of these in the oven, and we will find out how they taste. Okay, I pulled both recipes out of the oven. Our first recipe, the one that I sliced and used oil, salt, and pepper, has roasted, and it is so good. You can kind of see that it's become a little bit crispy, which is great. It was sizzling when I took it out of the oven. It took only about 20 minutes to cook. Maybe I could have left it in there a little bit longer, 25 minutes, but it was pretty much starting to be done by then. You can tell that these are done because they are soft. I can really easily poke them with a fork. If you remember how hard that I had to work to cut them in the first place, you can easily tell that they are done. And I did try one of these, and spoiler alert, the outside peel is quite edible. It's a little bit chewy, but really tasty. So it's not as sweet as butternut squash is, so it actually reminded me a little bit more of delicata, which is just a little bit more mild, but works really well with the salt and pepper. So I really liked that. Our second dish is also done. This one took a lot longer to cook, the one that we stuffed and roasted, but you can also tell that it is now done. It's not quite as soft as those thin ones just because that squash is so thick. So for the dish that we stuffed, I am now going to scoop out the flesh from the outer shell, the outer peel. So since it's hot, I'm gonna use these tongs, and this reminds me a lot more of a dish that I make using acorn squash. So you can tell that this is done because it is scooping out really easily, and I'm just scooping it into its own bowl because I don't like doing dishes, so I always like to try to use the same dishes whenever I can. I am being kind of careful that I don't scrape too hard because the peel is more delicate now. So again, I'm just really carefully going in there and scooping all of that flesh. So I only put maybe a tablespoon or 2 of brown sugar, so we will see how sweet that was. But again, it looks like this is pretty good success. So our question is which one we like more. Okay, there you have it. That is from start to finish how I prep a new vegetable that I've never seen before. So again, step 1, phone a foodie friend and get some recommendations on where to start. Step 2, Google it and learn a little bit about the vegetable, find some recipes that other people like so that you can have success. And number 3, have fun. Just enjoy the process and experimenting with something new, and be lighthearted about it. It's okay if it's not perfect. So thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in more recipes, try a 2-week free trial of the Peas and Hoppy Meal Guides. I'd love to have you part of the membership. With that, you get access to a private Facebook group where you can ask all of these nutrition questions and cooking questions. So if you're needing a foodie friend, I would love to be that for you. Have any questions or other comments, feel free to drop a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Again, my name is Ann Kent, owner of Peas and Hoppiness. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.